Join us this week as we put all of our boondocking to the test in the most extreme environments. We discuss pros, cons, and cost evaluations.
If we're living like we're at home, that's going to last us about 3 days on 100 gallons. And if we really stretch it, we can go for a week.
But let's talk cons. We phone a friend on that pesky grounding plug question that keeps coming up.
You know, a lot of grounding issues confuse me as well.
We even try a couple of new things with surprising results.
If it overloads it, it'll just flip the breaker. We'll unplug everything and reset. So,
okay.
Yeah, let's try it.
Yeah.
No way.
I kind of expected it not to work.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome back to our property in Arkansas where we are boondocking.
And we're burning up. So this is going to be the episode where Cody sweats.
High 90-degree temps, extremely high humidity. It's hot.
Extreme heat warnings every day this week. Excessive heat advisory, I think they call it, every single day this week.
But the point to that is we thought this would be the perfect opportunity to showcase some of our boondocking items and actually put them to the test. Are we the foremost authority on boondocking? Absolutely not. You need to go find a different channel for that.
Don't go find a different channel. Just hang with us because we learn as we go along.
The hard way.
Our property here in Arkansas, we don't have utilities yet. We got a driveway, we got a pad, we got a septic tank to dump in. So we're going to talk about how we live off grid and beat the heat. When we first started RVing, we had a Keystone travel trailer that we kept at our friend's house just down the road here, and we used it as a weekend lake home, and we later moved it to Illinois where it stayed by the lake, and we never moved it much. Then we had a smaller Jayco, and we started doing some traveling, and we bought one item for boondocking, and it has served us well since 2020. And that's probably where we should jump into this video first.
That's a good start.
What does boondocking mean? I guess it's a subjective term. But suffice to say, you don't have all the comforts of the campground, and you're probably somewhere like this where you're off-grid and you don't have a bunch of other campers around you. This is a great thing to do in the fall and the spring when you're in mild climates because you can get by with just a power source to run things like your water pump and your furnace and your fans. But if you're going to boondock in the heat and you want to run AC, like Tim Allen on Home Improvement used to say, you need more power, and we're going to talk about power first. When we were still part-time weekend warriors, we had a small Jayco, and after a long time of having just the RV that sat stationary by the lake, we decided we wanted to travel some, and we knew that was going to include some overnights at rest areas and truck stops. So this was our first and only purchase for boondocking in 2020, and this is our Westinghouse 4500i generator. I've talked about this a lot. I've got some maintenance videos out there on how we take care of this thing back in the archives, so if you want to check those out, we'll put some links in the description. We're just going to hit the high points of it. It's got a 30 amp plug, it's got two 110s, it's got eco mode to save some fuel and some other nice features. One thing that I really like about it is it has an info screen here that tells you, kind of like your car tells you miles to empty, this will tell you hours to empty based on the current load, which is really nice. It also has a maintenance minder on there that counts your hours so you know when to do your service work. They say to service this one every 100 hours. I can tell you I have not been very good at it. I've let maintenance lapse on this from time to time. We're sitting at 1,500 hours, which is more than I ever expected to get out of it. It does have electric start if you don't want to do a pull start, and it has a small battery for that I had to replace a couple of years ago. Otherwise, this thing's been flawless for 1,500 hours. This will run our house and one air conditioner. We can run kind of air conditioner and microwave for a little bit. We can do some things, but it basically maxes out at one air conditioner in the microwave. It's pretty quiet. It does have wheels and a suitcase roller type thing on it, and it weighs about 85 pounds empty. We paid right at $800 for this back in 2020. I checked the other day and I think they're $900 now. Not sponsored by Westinghouse, but this is an incredible unit. I love Honda and Yamaha products, you guys know that, but a Honda of this size is about double the cost. Just last fall, we added a Westinghouse 2200 watt generator to the mix, mainly because in the fall when we're boondocking, I don't need to get that big generator out. The way I carry this thing around is to put it up in the bed of the truck in front of the fifth wheel hitch. It's doable, but it's a pain. I got to take the bed cover off. So we bought this small one for fall and spring when we don't need air conditioner, just for the idea of running our microwave, keeping our batteries charged and stuff like that. It's very light. I think it's around 40 pounds. So you can move it really easy, and it saves some space. I can put it right inside the basement of the trailer. One thing about this model, and I know Westinghouse has some new small models out now that have the same information screen that this one does, you really don't have any idea what's going on with this thing. It runs out of fuel when it runs out of fuel. I have no idea how many hours I've put on it. We did break the pull cord almost immediately and had to fix that. Otherwise, it's been flawless. But just for this week, we added a new tool, which is this Westinghouse parallel cable. And so what it does is positive and negative to each generator, plus a ground cable, and it gives us the power of those two generators together, and they kind of idle up and idle down together. It's really a neat system. I'd never tried it before, but it's working great for us. So with these two paralleled together, it gives us right at 46 amps. And what that means for us is we can run both air conditioners at the same time. We are careful to start one and let it run for a second and then go start the other, just so we don't pop a breaker out here. If you do pop a breaker, it's pretty easy. You've got a red button on both these generators. You just hold it down until it cranks up again. But as far as that goes, it gives us 2 ACs in the summertime. The cable itself was about 60 bucks. Our small Westinghouse generator was $2.99. They're not that cheap now. I got an Amazon deal and I jumped on it. But this is a great setup if you're in a place that you can run generators, run both ACs, take care of it all in one shot.
But let's talk cons. You have the weight. Cody's no slouch, but I think this one gives him a run for his money. If this one, and when this one dies, if it dies, then we would probably think about a couple smaller options and parallel them. That way your lifting situation isn't so bad. With this under a heavy load at the moment, because we're running these almost 24/7, between these two generators, we're burning about 6 gallons of gas for 24 hours. So it's something you have to stay on top of. Cody has maintenance he has to do with them. I'll be honest, after a week of this running 24/7, sometimes I enjoy it when we're able to cut it off and I can enjoy nature and the sounds. And then last but not least, restrictions. There's a lot of places that will not allow you to run a generator.
Ange mentioned the fueling on these generators. I want to mention a couple of things you might need if you're going to go the generator route for your boondocking. One, you got to figure out how you're going to carry fuel around. So I utilize one fuel can that I carry in my truck. I always have it full just in case I get low on gas, and it has bailed me out a couple of times. But I get so irritated at these stupid safety fuel cans they sell at Walmart. You kind of have to push and click a valve and turn it and compress the spring, and I spill more fuel with the safety can than I would just pouring it out of a 5-gallon bucket and hoping for the best. For years, for the boats, the jet skis, all this stuff, I have really come to love these VP racing jugs. They've got the nice big funnel on there, no restrictions whatsoever, and you can dump 5 gallons of fuel really quick. And spoiler alert, secret time, don't tell anyone, you can fit a little over 6 gallons of fuel into a 5-gallon jug. Do that at your own risk. Be careful, don't spill anything, but it's a way to get one more gallon to count. A couple of other things you might need. You'll probably need some different electrical adapters, and these are good to have even if you're not going to boondock, because what do you do when you get to the campsite that has 30 amp and not 50? Well, you need a 30 amp to 50 amp adapter. And this plugs right into our big Westinghouse generator and allows us to plug our 50 amp cord straight into it. This is a 110 household adapter that plugs into our small generator so that we can run our rig off of a household extension cord. Now with that said, you don't want to use the cheap flimsy dollar store $8 extension cords. They're just not thick enough. They don't handle the heat well. I would recommend a big, thick, heavy 110 extension cord to run from your small generator to the house. And you never want to try to run air conditioners or anything big off of it, because it can, it can heat those cords up and you can start having all kinds of problems. So definitely get a heavy duty extension cord if you're going to do that. If you're going to run the house, you need to convert it down into your 50 amp cable so that you don't have any, problems. I'm not an electrician, so I won't get into all of it. I'll just say that it's bad and things can melt. If you go to your local RV shop and you say, I want to go boondocking, I want to go camping, they're going to sell you everything but the kitchen sink. But suffice to say, the two adapters that we use the most are the 30 to 50 amp adapter and your household 110 to 50 amp adapter. Those two are going to get you out of the majority of the situations. Obviously, if you have a 30 amp rig, you don't need a 50 amp adapter and so on, but this is just what works for us. So Angela talked about restrictions with generators. So here a while back, we did a whole video on this. We'll put a link down here to it if you want to get into all the dirty details and specifics of this. But this is our OUPES Mega 2. I was excited to get it and test it and try it, but honestly, it's become something I use a lot. I found a ton of uses for it. For instance, right now when we're boondocking, there's usually a little bit of time at night or in the morning where we don't need to run the generators because it's cool and we don't need the air conditioning. I usually set this thing right under the kitchen table. I leave my laptop plugged into it all day, so if we want to shut the generators off for a couple of hours, it kind of works like a continuous battery backup. And it takes some of the load off those generators. If we're running both air conditioners and we want to make a pot of coffee or run the microwave, we usually put it on this just so we don't overstress the generators. And we have plugged the entire RV into it just to make sure all of our outlets work. We've ran the microwave off of it, the little fridge outside. Like our big generator, it kind of tells you, based on the load you have right now, here's how long it's going to run. And the unsung hero of this, and I know there's a lot of different models of this kind of battery bank out there, is how fast it charges. If you plug it into a household outlet, it will charge at 1600 watts. And that means you can run this thing nearly empty and have it fully charged in about an hour. It has the ability to plug into its own solar panel, which we don't have yet. That's going to charge significantly slower. And it has the ability to plug into the cigarette outlet in your truck. Again, it's going to charge significantly slower. But if you had a long travel day, you could at least do some good with this. They are kind of expensive, but it's a great tool for boondocking. You know, there's just one thing we haven't done with this yet. We have yet to try to run one air conditioner, because right now we've got the generators turned off for you guys. You're welcome, so you don't have to hear them running in the background. But the camper is actively getting hot. So, Ange, what do you say? You want to try to run an air conditioner?
Ooh, let's try it.
Let's just see what happens. Worst case scenario, it does have a circuit breaker, so it's not going to explode. If it overloads it, it'll just flip the breaker. We'll unplug everything and reset. So,
okay.
Yeah, let's try it. We're going to plug our adapter in. Surge protector in, and a grounding plug. All right, Ange, go crank the air on. Well,
it's running.
Is it blowing cold?
Yeah.
No way.
I'll be
Really?
honest, I kind of expected it not to work.
I am really impressed with that because I expected it to pop the breaker since we don't have soft starts. When I first plugged this in, it was pulling about 400 watts. And that could be probably our little fridge out here that runs off the 110 side, or maybe our converter to charge the battery since we've had the generators off for a while. When you turn the AC on, it peaked to just over 2,000 watts. And it's running. The cooling fans are running on it. It is not the end all be all. That's going to run, according to the screen, for about an hour running our AC. So it's not going to save you. It's not going to be a replacement for a generator or a longer term power source, but like later today, I've got to change the oil in both of these generators. It's going to be 98 degrees today. We can keep the house cooling while I'm doing my work and not get hot, because you know when this thing gets hot, it takes it a while to cool down.
Or an emergency situation, or stopping on the side of the road for lunch and you just need to cool it down long enough, or we want to go into a store, it's too hot to have the dogs in there without power.
Kick the air on for an hour. And you can,
it's a nice option to have.
And you can have multiples. I think you can connect 3 or 4 of those together.
Like the generators.
Just like the generators. Okay. And the nice thing about it is, it recharges so fast, I'm just going to leave it running while we finish up this video so the dogs stay cool in there. It'll recharge in an hour, so no harm, no foul.
Perfect.
All right, quick honorable mention, since we're still on the power topic, is the little Westinghouse 200 watt electric generator. This functions similar to the OUPES. You can charge your phones with the USBs. You got a couple of 110 outlets. Now, this is 200 watts, so you're not going to be able to start an AC with it, but it might get you through charging your phones. We've had this thing forever. What I used it for prior to the OUPES was just to plug my laptop into. Where it's really convenient now, and we still use it when we're boondocking when the generator's off, is it slides right between our TV and the cabinet that the TV sits in. We run our TV off of this. You can get 6, 7, 8 hours of TV usage on it. And when I go back to the selling point of the OUPES and the fast charging, that big old thing charges in about an hour. This thing might take 6 or 8 hours to charge it all the way up because it doesn't have a fast charger. So this is great for specific purposes. If you're going to do big stuff, you might want to step up to something a little bigger. One thing I want everybody to remember, if you're using generators or an OUPES power bank or any sort of external power source, same thing when you plug into the pedestal at the campground, please make sure that all of your high load items are switched off. And for us, that's mainly our air conditioners. When these generators start, or when you first plug into a power pole, you want the minimum draw possible. Now, when you plug in, it's automatically going to start sucking juice because you've got a converter to charge your batteries. Maybe you have a residential fridge or an outdoor fridge like we do. Those things are just going to kind of be there, and they're minimal. When you go to make that connection right here, your rig's already hunting for power. And if you're off, you don't want to get an arc there that could potentially cause a power surge or damage your surge protector or your cord or cause a big voltage drop inside your camper. So turn off as much stuff as you can before you plug into the power pedestal or before you turn on your generator. At your power pedestal, you should be putting your surge protector in when you get there to make sure everything's good before you connect your rig. Shut the breakers off, plug in, flip the breakers. But always make sure you have as much stuff turned off as possible so you don't have just that immediate bang of surge as soon as you plug it in. The last thing I wanted to mention is we do have a factory solar panel on the roof that's 370 watts and a Furrion solar charge controller. When we first got this rig, we had one lead acid battery. We added a second lead acid battery and it still wouldn't get us through overnight trips on basically just the refrigerator and a fan. So we did upgrade to a 410 amp hour REDODO lithium battery, which caused us to have to change our power converter to be able to charge that lithium battery. That thing is killer. If we were sitting here and didn't need air conditioning, we'd run everything we need off of that battery. And as long as we had a decent amount of sunlight, we'd be just fine. That lithium battery was an awesome upgrade, and we'll put a link to that video down in the description. Our rig also came with a 370 watt Furrion solar panel. If we can get a good clear view of the sky, not so much here when we're sitting in 100-foot pine trees, but when we've got good sunshine, it's pretty much self-sufficient. I would still always, regardless of whatever your power bank system is or how advanced it is, I would always recommend having some kind of external backup power, whether it's a small generator or an OUPES power bank or something like that, because you're going to have rainy days where you don't get sunlight.
Now, we have had some people ask why we don't just upgrade the inverter to a little more simple system than having all these items. Part of that is because we have just been piecemealing these things together. Like we mentioned, some of the stuff we've had long before we were RVing all the time.
And those people aren't wrong. It would be a whole lot easier just to have a massive battery bank in the camper and a massive inverter, and everything's just kind of automated and takes care of itself. Here's why we didn't do that. One, we had no idea how much boondocking we were going to do, and we've been piecemealing this stuff together. Two, honestly, we don't think we're going to spend a ton of time off grid. So if we took 4 of our 410 amp hour batteries, or even 2 of them, they're about $1,250 a piece. There's $2,500 and a few $100s for a bigger inverter. And then I got to have somebody, or figure out how to do myself, wire all that in to where it just works. Everything's loose. If I get a wild hair and trade trailers tomorrow, I take all of my gear from this trailer over into this trailer. If I wanted the big system, I'd need many more panels to keep that big battery bank charged, and you're just racking up cost. With what we have so far, me being cheap and not knowing how much we're really going to utilize all this equipment, we got the big generator for $900 if you bought it today. We got the little generator that's about $500 if you bought it today. You've got the OUPES that's about $1,200. The REDODO that's about $1,200, which is still, you know, about half the cost from some of the big names on the same size battery. So we've got a decent amount of money tied up in this, but we've done it over years, little bits at a time. When you hit those windows of limitation on what your current system will do, it's easy just to add one more tool to your toolbox. Okay, the hard part's out of the way. We've covered power when you're boondocking. Let's talk about water. And we'll be short and sweet on this because there's not a lot to talk about. You need some kind of water source. For us, when we know we're going to go boondocking, we like to fill our water tank mostly full before we get there. That's only going to last so many days. If we're living like we're at home, that's going to last us about 3 days on 100 gallons. And if we really stretch it, we can go for a week, but that means army showers, paper plates, limited dishes, limited hair washings, all those things that make Angela really uncomfortable when we're boondocking. When we're down here, we have a water source at our friend's house, but rather than hook up the whole rig, we added a water bag to the equation. We actually filled that up yesterday and ran it all into the camper. So we used our water bag and we used our water pump and we got it all filled up, brought it down here to the trailer and pumped it in, and it's doing awesome. Just pulled it out of the box. I'll put a link in the description, but you might wait and let me use it a bit first before you go out buying one, just to make sure it's okay. I do like that it has some tie down points here, because with the short bed truck and a slider hitch, you can see like right there is to the end of our hitch. If you get the OEX hitch, it would go in here all the way.
It absolutely would, yeah.
I think if we wanted to do it like this and we were going to have to pull it like down the road, you know, you'd fold it, shut the tailgate, and run the hose over the top. There's one thing that I kind of run into a problem with, and this is just something you guys should think about if you're thinking about getting one of these water bags. This side goes to your water hydrant. This side goes to your water bag, right? That doesn't work. So the only fix that I could come up with, I'm gonna put on this female to female connection, see what happens, because I have not used this thing before. Here we go, we're filling water. All right, now we're back at camp. Disregard the generator noise. So we have the Nautilus system on our Grand Design. So we just have it switched to power fill, which means every bit of water we put in is going to go directly in the tank. Put on this female to female connection again. The bag came with some Teflon tape. Full disclosure, I did not use it. And so as you're filling, and I assume when we're dumping, we're going to have a little bit of a drip or a drizzle. I'll live. I'll fix it later. It's been a rough week. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to turn this valve on. Water's going to start to flow. Got a little drip there. And as the water starts to flow, we need to open the vent on the top, I assume. Yeah, now she's flowing.
You know what happens when you assume.
Now I've just got this cheap little pump that I bought on Amazon that's going to expedite this whole thing.
Just a little sump pump.
That last drop. You got to get that last drop. So how long did it take?
To fill it, we estimated about 10 minutes, and that's you rolling out the hose and everything. So to fill it really
First time
fast.
around, had never done it before, just got it out of the box. I don't think that's too bad.
And then to, let me check.
To push it into the tank, that took a little longer.
Took a little bit longer, 22 minutes.
22 minutes. But fresh tank full, which is good. Fresh tank's full, so we're good for another, depending on how aggressive or conservative we are. Like when we were up in Indiana, we made a tank of water, which is a little bit less than 100 gallons, like 98 gallons, I think, on our fresh tank. We made that last nearly a week. I mean, we were pushing air at the end of it, but we did pretty good with that. So,
but I like my long showers, so I don't want to do this all the time.
Long showers too. So this can last 3 or 4 days, or this can last 5 or 7. When you're in a situation where you're boondocking, this is a great thing to have. I think that thing costs 50 or 60 bucks for the bag, and for the first trip out, it worked great. We're gonna try it a few more times while we're here. We'll let you know. This pump, on the other hand, this is a pump that I bought on Amazon right after we bought this Reflection, because we had it at our spot at Illinois, and they shut the water off after Halloween, and we like to keep going. And I would carry a bunch of 5-gallon jugs of water down, and I would just throw a short hose into the 5-gallon jug with that, and it would suck a 5-gallon jug in, you know, probably 90 seconds, 2 minutes. And I think I only gave like 20 bucks for that thing. We'll have to correct it if I'm wrong. I'll look it up, but it was pretty cheap, and it's loud and it's noisy and it gets hot, but it does the job. You know, when I ordered the water bag, I had the Milwaukee water transfer pump in the Amazon cart. And
Of course you did.
And it was battery operated and like a lot faster than that. Over $200 for something I'm not going to use that much. Let me just burn up this little $20 pump, and then I'll do something different next time. But
And what was the difference on the transfer amount, you think?
I don't remember off the top of my head. We'll put it down here on what the Milwaukee does versus what this does. We'll put them both down here.
Okay.
So if you don't boondock a lot and you're not in a major rush for time, this is a money saver. This is going to pull some power. You're going to need a generator, whereas the Milwaukee, you can use a battery and just snap it in and transfer that whole bag of water, and I hear no time. I know there's a setting on the Nautilus where you can do the winterize. You can put it in the winterize function and turn the water pump on, and it will suck water in that way, but it's so slow. I would definitely recommend some sort of transfer pump. Whatever you decide on, it's totally up to you.
And do you think the longer hose made a difference on the timing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with this. I'm kind of a newbie when it comes to transferring water. Usually, if we're going to boondock, we just fill up at the campground we're at before, and we're full when we get there, and we're only doing it for a few days, so this is kind of different for us. When I've done it in the past, I've usually taken one of these little leader hose, what I call a leader hose. I've got two of these. I would screw one of these into the Nautilus and the other one into the pump and just dump it in a bucket like that. And it seemed to transfer water a lot faster with a shorter distance. Currently, I have a 25-foot hose going to the back of my truck. It took a little longer, but at the end of the day, to be boondocking, we're camping for free. Yeah.
This is good practice for us so that when we are out of our element, we know our stuff.
And let's talk about that stinky stuff. Something else you're gonna have to deal with when you're boondocking is sewer. And for that, we have the turd burglar. This is not necessary. You don't have to have this. If our black tank got full, we could just tow the trailer to a dump station. However, I don't like to move the trailer unless I absolutely have to, because every time you move the trailer, there's a risk of damaging the trailer. So we carry the turd burglar, and you guys have seen us use this before. We offload the wastewater from our trailer into this, hook it to the back of the truck, and pull it to the dump station. I'm not gonna say it's a must-have because you can always just move the trailer. But I like having this. We've had one on the rig for a long time, and they do make life a whole lot easier when you're boondocking. So my old tank was 38 gallons, I think. It finally failed on me. The wheels broke off, and it was just a whole thing. Our Rhino tank's 28 gallons. I can't remember what I paid for this. I think it was a couple $100, maybe $3, but we'll put it right here so you guys know. And it's in our Amazon store as well. I will recommend, if you're gonna buy a honey wagon, turd burglar, whatever you wanna call it, definitely look into the Rhinos. They're a lot better built. And the one thing I like more about this one than my old one is it has a dump valve on the side, so you can leave it setting flat on the ground while you're dumping it, versus my old one that only had one hole, which is right here, and you would have to get it to the dump station and lift that whole thing up on the end to get it all to drain out. That was a pain. This one's a back saver. First off, the generators have been rocking and rolling. We tried out our parallel cable for the first time, and I was a little concerned about fuel spend, but to be honest, there were a couple of cooler days where I went down to one generator and we burn about the same amount of fuel. But with the two hooked together, we can run both ACs and stay nice and chilly. That Big Blue generator has ran non-stop for 2 weeks. We're over 1,700 hours, pushing 1,800 hours on it now, and it's been working flawlessly. I've been kicking the second generator on during the day when it's really, really hot and we need that second air conditioner, or we're running microwaves or extra stuff that kind of draws extra power. The whole setup's been working great. We're not sponsored by Westinghouse, but I would definitely recommend their generators because they are cost effective, they last a long time, they're decent on fuel, and they're not too heavy or too loud. So if you're looking for a generator on a budget, I think these are great options. When we had to do our maintenance last week on the generators, I plugged the whole house into the OUPES and ran the air conditioner so we didn't get hot when we walked back inside. We're using that now. It's been doing great, but really where it's came in so handy for me is in the mornings when it's kind of cool. Maybe we cut the generators off for a little bit. We've been using it to run our coffee pot. Angela's been using it to run her hair dryer and her hair straightener.
In my crock pot, I ran my crock pot off of the OUPES for 6 hours. Now, it took 84% of it, so I was pretty excited about that. I just had to mention it.
But where it really, in my opinion, comes in handy is for the work from home aspect. Anything to take a little bit of the load off the generator. So what I like to do is set it right under our kitchen table or my part-time desk. And I keep everything plugged into that. When the generators are running, it's plugged into the wall. We're doing pass-through charging, so it always stays topped off to 100%. So if we run out of generator fuel, or heaven forbid we had a generator fail, I'm not gonna say it's a must-have, but if you're gonna boondock a lot, this thing adds a lot of value, really more so than I ever thought that it would when we got it.
Hey man, how you doing?
So Jeremy, I've talked to a bunch of people that have reached out in our comments that want a little more explanation on why we should use a grounding plug with the generator, and I get the gist of it and why it's important, but I was wondering if you could make it easier from an electrician standpoint on how to understand kind of what that is and why it matters.
So my background, as you know, is I was an electrician on a submarine for 20 years. Submarines work with ungrounded systems. And so to be completely honest here, you know, a lot of grounding issues confuse me as well. You and I both have small generators for our rigs, and we have what are called floating neutral generators. And basically it's the same thing as having an open ground. And I'm not going to get really far into the weeds on that, but when you try and read about these things out there on the internet, there's a lot of conflicting information. Some people say that using a floating neutral generator to power your RV is there's no issue, right? No problem with that. Other people will say it is a dangerous situation to be in because now you don't have that protection of the ground system going back to that generator. So by using a grounding plug on what we call floating neutral generator, which by the way, most of your small generators below about 4,500 watts, those inverter generators, they are going to be floating neutral generators. And the way you can tell that you have one is, and I know you know this already, is if you take a surge protector, one of those smart surge protectors, and you plug that surge protector into your floating neutral generator, your surge protector won't pass that power through to your RV. It'll tell you that you have an open ground.
Okay.
So the way that we get around that is by using one of those ground neutral bonding plugs. And you get these things for like $15 on Amazon.
Yep. And
basically what it does is you plug that thing right into your generator, into one of the 120 volt outlets on your generator, the 20 amp outlets. And basically what it does is it ties the neutral and the ground together. So now your surge protector no longer sees that open ground. Now, if you have a ground fault in your rig, that ground fault has a path back to the source, which is that generator, and it will immediately, or it should immediately, trip the breaker on that generator.
that makes sense. I mean, it's a really simple fix. I think the one I got was 15 or 16 bucks. It was from the link that you sent me, and it takes the open ground fault away, and life is good. But we've mentioned it a few times, and I think it's something that not a lot of people are aware of, and I get a lot of questions that are a little bit in more detail. So I think this is going to be really, really helpful to our viewers, just to kind of understand why we need this basically $16 dongle to make a problem go away.
Like I said before, it's really split out there about whether or not you absolutely need one or not. But here's my thing. For 15 bucks, right, now you've got it, and it's not in any way, shape, or form going to hurt you for having it.
Right.
There is a product that we have mentioned before softly and broadly, and that's a soft start.
It's not that I couldn't do it or couldn't figure it out. I just didn't want to get on the roof. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm a big proponent of things that I can take with me. This is a plug and play soft start unit, and it's supposed to give your whole house, your microwaves, your air conditioners, your refrigerator, everything soft start capabilities. But when they reached out to us to try one of these, I was all over it. When we had the initial call about the product, we walked through our rig and what kind of air conditioners we have and everything else. They sent us this and said, try it, test it, see what you think. It didn't work for us, which is disappointing. It sounds like there's a lot of proprietary technology in this, and they're having a little bit of a hiccup getting them to work well with the Coleman Mach 15 air conditioners, which is what we have. I get it, it's a new product. That's not the major problem. The bigger problem is how long it's taken to get any kind of support. The response time for customer service has been very slow. It's been a few weeks and we still have this, we still can't use it. And at this point we've asked for a return label because we're not sure that we're gonna get the support to support the Coleman Mach 15s. I think it has the opportunity to have a positive impact for a lot of people like me who don't enjoy getting on their roofs. These people seem great on the front end, and I'm not saying that I won't try this again, but I've got to have some assurances that it's going to work with the Coleman Mach 15 and we're going to get a timely response if we have a problem. So I'm not saying don't do this, I'm saying it didn't work for us, and I'm saying be very cautious, but I did tell you guys in several videos we're not going to promote things that we don't believe in, and this isn't something that I believe in just yet. We also have the solar and the lithium battery. We haven't got to test that a whole lot here because it's been so hot and we're not set up to run AC on it. We did have those 2 rainy days where we didn't run the generator much and it did great. The issue is we don't have a lot of sunlight here, definitely not a lot of direct sunlight. So our solar charging capabilities are relatively limited, but overall I would give our power score an A+.
A real quick 2-week recap on our water bag. Man, that thing has saved our hide these weeks. Couple things that we've noticed. It can be a little difficult to get completely full. Needless to say, we went through 4 bags of water in 2 weeks' time. The bag is supposed to hold 65 gallons of water. Now, with that being said, we all use things differently. We wash dishes every few days. We took somewhat military showers, but not super conservative. Also, we noticed there's a lot of air that seems to come into the rig with that, and I can't really see that there's a remedy for that at this point, unless there's something that you know. Aside from that, we're so happy with the water bag.
I may have lost track, but we ran about a half a dozen trips of gray water just right up there to our sewer inlet, and 2 tanks of black water, not necessarily because we were full. I just usually dump every 7 days when we're stationary. This thing's working out great. It's pretty self-explanatory. And, you know, while we've been a little bit conservative on water, it's been hot here. And there's been days where we've got off the lake and covered the boat. We've been drenched in sweat and we've taken 2 showers a day. So I'm sure everybody that boondocks is probably more conservative than us on water. But again, this thing's been working out great in conjunction with the water bag. So that about wraps it up here, guys. That's our boondocking setup. There's a lot of different ways to do this. We're from the South, we love the South, and we love being down here in the summertime, but we've got property, we've got friends that have property, so we really hate to pay for a campground. All this stuff comes in really handy. I will say if you're gonna stay in the north or you're gonna stay in more mild climates where you can live without air conditioner, you can do a whole lot less to get by on. But for us, this is working really well. We've been here for about a week now. We've stayed cool every day. We've had everything we needed and we've been very, very comfortable. But if you're willing to rough it a little bit more, obviously you can get by with less. This is just what works for us.
As always, thank you for spending your precious time with us.
And we'll see you guys on the next one.
We went through 4 bags of water of this 65
gallon water bags.
We went through 4 bags of water in 2 weeks' time. The bag is 65 gallons. The bag is 65 gallons. The bag is supposed to hold 65 gallons of water.
It's done this last couple of weeks. I didn't even use a word. We are 2 weeks in. All right, guys, we're just a little over. Did I say air conditioner or generator there?
Air conditioner.
Our generators have been doing, I had a little bit of a concern about, you laughing at me or her? Parallel kid, how much more fuel than I'm gonna burn? I didn't even say a sentence. Clip that, can I start over?